So this is kind of a spur of the moment thing. I'm sorry to because I know you were eating and I pulled you out of that and everything.
It's fine.
I was like, I haven't debated with Jamuna in a while, and I need to because I need to see a smiling face again on call out. Um, but the top the question of beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and the approach that I would want to take with that is that there is an expression, and this is used as an expression. And I don't think it's a 100% true expression. It's not like 100% of beauty is within the eye of the beholder. Um, but I think that the expression, as a general rule, is true because it's the question of whether or not beauty is subjectively seen or whether or not it is 100% objective. And I think, as a general rule, when it comes to beauty, it comes from the viewer. This is why one person can watch a movie and think, wow, that was the greatest movie of all time. And another person thinks that was super boring. Like, my favorite movie of all time is the movie Her, which I think is a fantastic movie. Oh, you've seen that movie?
Did you say her?
Yeah, Her. Oh,
Oh my God, that's my favorite movie of
that is
all
your
time.
favorite movie? Oh
I
my gosh, I love you. Okay, that
I
is
could watch
amazing.
it like 10, 50, 100 times. I love it.
I love that movie so much. That is, and I guess that my video just cut out, but that's okay. But so yes. Anyway, but the thing is, as I'm sure you know, not that many people have seen that movie, right? Kind of
Right.
underground. And out of those who do see it, not everyone likes it because they think it's weird and then they don't understand it. So while we may use some objective means to say this is an amazing movie, it still has been our subjective preferences. In the same way that like a person can find another person attractive and they'll find that attractive. Maybe there are some objective standards, but the actual appearance, the actual judgment has to come from the viewer themselves. And so that's why it is said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So overall, I would say that that concept is true, that it is a subjective measurement of beauty. I'm going to restart my computer so you can go ahead and talk, but I'm going to try and see if I can get this video working again.
Okay. Can you hear me or not? Okay. Okay, great.
Oh, hi. What did I say? Anything? In anything?
Okay. I'm so glad that we have like a common favorite movie because so many of my friends, like my cousins, they're like, it's so boring. But I'm like, no, it's not. I love that movie. So, in terms of this topic, so whatever thing you mentioned, those things are actually perspective.
Hmm.
So but I think beauty is something that stays by no matter like how your perspective would change, but beauty is something that would still be appealing to you. So let's just see if in terms of the definition of beauty, how it says like a combination of qualities, shape, color, form that actually pleases the aesthetic senses. So it's something that will be there no matter like you have a certain perspective on it, but that is going to be pleasing anyway. Or let's just say, yeah, beautiful. So as you talked about how one person would actually like one movie or the other would not actually like it, so I think that's perspective. um that's not necessarily how we actually view beauty, because I think, let's just say, if you let's just say if we see a picture of a beach, like beach water, and so everyone is going to like it, right? It's because it's beautiful. So it's not necessarily because what the person actually what the person has if a person actually has a different perspective to see the beach, but it's just going to be beautiful for everyone. That's why we have, like, let's say, most beautiful places in the world. That's why yeah, we have those things, because it's not something that is going to change in terms of how a beholder feels about it, but it's something that's actually already beautiful. So yeah, I think that's kind of a take I have on this debate. And I think in terms of like the beholder thing, I think people, if in case someone is let's just say, if in case someone wants to be um mm, let's just say, I don't know how do we say it, but let's just say, if in case I'm connected to someone, I'd find that person beautiful no matter what. It's not necessarily the beauty, it does not necessarily have to be in a standard like as beauty defines, but it just because like the person is related to me. So I'll just say, no matter what year he wears, I could just be like, oh, you're beautiful. So there was actually, I think, a picture that showed different children with a different mothers, like with their own children. And there was this lady from India, like, who didn't have um like the real good clothing on her body, and then her like son, he was um I think, yeah, I don't know, like he was not clean, like, he was dirty, but still, when there was like a competition or something for bringing, like, their child, she actually brought the child to that competition, thinking that, like, he is actually one of the cutest, like, children in that area or something. That's because, like, a mother would like, always have that kind of feeling for a child. A brother would always have that kind of feeling for a sister, but it does not necessarily mean that it's the exact beauty, or it's actually the standard that actually should be implied in terms of seeing a beauty. But as I said, when we talk about, let's just say, a beach, or like or natural beauty thing, maybe a river or something, that's something everyone is going to find yeah, beautiful. And it's not because, like, it's the beholder thing, it's actually beautiful.
I don't know if you can say it is though. Like, we can say there are certain aspects of it that are pleasing, and I think that was what you had said. That we find certain aspects pleasing, but I don't think that necessarily makes the thing beautiful. Like, if I find something beautiful or you something beautiful, that isn't necessarily what would make it objectively beautiful. That's why it would be that the beauty is in my eye, that I see the beach as beautiful, which to me makes it beautiful. But that doesn't necessarily mean the beach is beautiful. In the same way that, like, when you talk about your examples of the mother with the child who wasn't attractive to most people, but she was still entered in the cutest kid competition. If most people didn't find that child attractive, were they objectively wrong not to see that child's beauty? I don't think they were. I think that what they saw was accurate to them because they saw the child as not aesthetically like pleasing, right? So it is possible that if the child was made more aesthetically pleasing, they would see the child as pleasing and as beautiful. But we can't say that their perspective on it was wrong when they didn't see this beauty that supposedly was there. I looked at the definition of beauty from Merriam-Webster: the quality or aggregate of qualities in a person or thing that gives pleasure to the senses or pleasurably exalts the mind or spirit. So that suggests that it's beautiful when we find that beauty, when the qualities please us. So that would mean that it does come from the viewer themselves. So, like, do you think that the people who don't like her, I would say that they have a difference in taste, not necessarily that they are wrong. And here's the thing: there are some people who will not like her, and they will be wrong because they won't have good reasons for not liking her, right? But there could be other people, like if you look up her on Rotten Tomatoes, there will be movie critics, and the vast majority of them will like her. And there will be a couple of them who might not like the movie, but who have good reasons for it. That doesn't mean they're objectively wrong. It just means they weren't aesthetically pleased like we were. So I'd say that the beauty does come from the viewer itself and how it affects that viewer.
Okay. I was thinking of something that doesn't come to my mind right now, but even in the example I actually presented, the thing is that even in that example, we cannot say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Let's just say, if in case you were telling me that maybe the mother actually, mother is the beholder, and then she actually sees beauty in her child. The thing is that she does not find her child aesthetically pleasing as well. It's just because she shares a relation of that person. It's just because yeah, because it's her child. It does not also imply with is defined by beauty how we can actually how we should find it aesthetically pleasing. So does not get that from a child either. It's just because she shares a relation with him. She thinks he's beautiful, or she implies he's beautiful. You know, it just yeah. So she implies that he's beautiful, but it does not yeah. I don't think it's in the eye of beholder.
But
But
then where does that come from? Because you're saying that the child is beautiful, right? But how do you know that? How do we know that all children are beautiful? And how do we know, like, to use the same example with movies, are all movies beautiful?
mm-hmm. Okay, I'm trying to get your question. I think again in terms of movies, I think there's a lot of thinking that's involved with finding like a movie beautiful. Like let's just say in terms of how we have in terms of the environment maybe we have grown up in, or maybe the perspectives we have, the kind of people we live with. I think there are a lot of factors in terms of liking a movie, but in terms of finding someone beautiful, I don't think we have such intense level of thinking, intense level of like thought processing that goes with finding something beautiful, because it's something you just look up and then you're like, oh, it's beautiful. So I think in terms of
But
beauty,
that's subjective, right? Because someone else could look up and see, oh, that's ugly, and then you look up and go, oh, that's beautiful, right? Isn't that subjective?
no, I wouldn't say beauty is subjective. I wouldn't say beauty is subjective. I think maybe the way they see it would be subjective. Like I think because people could find it differently. People could find it differently beautiful. That could be subjective. But whether or not they find it beautiful, I think it's objective. Like beauty is in itself objective. That's how I see it. But yeah.
Well, I think that there are certain aspects of that. I think there are certain objective standards that we
Mhm.
can't use. Like, for instance, when I watch a movie, I went to a film school, so I know how movies are made, and so I know that the amount of work and the amount of effort that goes into them. So I really appreciate when a movie is well acted, when its writing is creative and interesting, when the visual effects are well done, when the cinematography is beautiful and extraordinary and unusual. I appreciate all of these individual logical elements to the movie. And so when I see that, I go, these are objective things which I can grade a movie off of. But ultimately, my perception of that movie is what will make me say, this is beautiful or this is not beautiful. I think a really good example of this would be the movie The Tree of Life. Have you seen that one?
The Tree of Life.
The Tree of Life? Yeah. It's a movie that doesn't really have a story. I mean, it does have a story, but it's so like one scene and then another scene and another scene, and none of the scenes really connect, but emotionally, a lot of people feel like they do, and so it emotionally moves a lot of people. It didn't get there for me at all. So I find that movie to be awful. I hated it. But
Mm-hmm.
my brother, who is also a really good like critic of movies and of art, he thinks it's one of the most beautiful things ever made. I don't think he's necessarily wrong because he has good reasons for having reached his conclusion. I disagree with his conclusion. But to him, that movie is beautiful. and to me it is not. Which
Mm-hmm.
is why when I hear the expression "beauty is in the eye of the beholder," I think as a general rule, just as a general concept, this is accurate. Because while there can be objective standards that we use to judge things, ultimately our perspective is going to determine whether we see something as beautiful or not. And I don't think that someone is wrong for being moved by one thing while another person is not moved by that thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just one example before starting on that. I think so. If we see mountains, um, even me, like I would say, oh, that's beautiful. But let's just say, if in case I had to live in mountains, I would say no. I don't want to do that, or I'd not enjoy that. But looking at the mountains, even though I would not technically love like staying there, I would say, oh, that's beautiful. So it's and I think everyone in the world, I think they would actually find mountains beautiful, because it's something that pleases your eyes. It's something that actually I mean, I'd not be so creative on it, but whatever it is formed of, the snow on the top or anything, it is somehow like pleasing to everyone, and then that's how they find it beautiful. So it's not going to depend on me. I think it doesn't actually depend on me whether or not the mountains are beautiful, because it is already beautiful. But I think just on the part of the movies thing, do you think like on this sentence itself, when we talk about the eye of the beholder, do you think does it like have a um certain reference um to the idea that we are seeing it, like we're just seeing it? So as I said, in terms of movies, we apply a lot of thought processing and then a lot of like thinking and perspectives to actually bring it. But just in the like in the sentence itself, like when it says eye of the beholder, do you think like it is actually going to refer just like just the sight of it? Did you get what I mean?
Not really following that. Well, the way I interpret the phrase "beauty is in the eye of the beholder," and the way it's commonly used, is just to say that beauty is measured by the
Mm-hmm.
person who sees it, and that
Mm-hmm.
everyone's going to see it differently. Which is
Mm-hmm.
why usually it's used with like people and like, oh, I think she's really gorgeous. Yeah, I don't. Well, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? That's
uh,
the common
that's
use of the phrase. Um, that's the just because that's how people like respond with it when they use it in regular conversation and everything.
mm-hmm.
To talk about your mountains thing, you're saying that mountains are necessarily beautiful, but
Mm-hmm.
what would make you know that? You might believe that, and yet
Mm-hmm.
someone else might not. What is the objective standard that would say mountains are beautiful, and if you disagree, you are wrong?
Mm-hmm. Okay, because I think hmm, I don't know. I think the way they are created, or like I think it's hmm, yeah. I think the way they are created, it is somehow aesthetically pleasing, but um hmm,
Aesthetically pleasing to you, but how do you know that they themselves are necessarily beautiful?
I think that would be to everyone, because um let's just say, if in case like people talk about Nepal being the most beautiful country in the world, I think mountains would be that one first thing that comes up on the list. Nepal is beautiful because like mountains exist, and I think people actually, many tourists, like millions and millions of tourists, actually come to Nepal because of that specific thing, like because they know that it's going to be aesthetically pleasing, and that's why it's in the advertisement itself, and that's why actually we have a lot of people coming in. So I think in terms of beauty, um, let's just say, if in case we, hmm, as I said, if even in case of the mother and child relationship, I think it's more about the relation you share with that person, and then that makes you imply or actually think that the person is beautiful, but it is not necessarily so. I think it's objective, and then anything beautiful is beautiful to everyone. That's how I see it.
Well, my video, for some reason, I don't know what's wrong with my computer, but for some reason it just randomly cuts out sometimes. But that's okay because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So Anyone beholding me already knows I'm not beautiful, so it works. Um, but to talk about Nepal, now you personally have a very personal connection to Nepal. So you personally find it extremely beautiful. My family used to go to the Sea Ranch, which is a house or like a place up above San Francisco, about 100 miles north of San Francisco. And
Mm-hmm.
I find it one of the most beautiful places in the world. And I have a personal connection to it, which makes me find it even more beautiful because I have memories of that
Mm-hmm.
place. And so I can go just drive past the Sea Ranch and I just get hit with this wave of emotions that I remember from like my experiences at this place, which makes me find it all the more beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
These are my subjective feelings about the place.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say that there was a woman who
Mm-hmm.
had lived in the Sea Ranch, and
Mm-hmm.
while she was living there, her husband was murdered.
Okay.
So every time she drives past the Sea Ranch, it just hits her with this flood of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, "Get me out of here. I can't look at that place."
Mm-hmm.
To her, that place that to me is this gorgeous, incredible area would not be seen as beautiful. Now, there could be objective things we could point to as, look, this is really nice. These waves they appeal to the vast majority of people. But that doesn't necessarily mean it is beautiful. It just means that the majority of people find it beautiful, which is different than this objective statement that it is. Because in order to say it is, you'd need to say that that woman who can't even look at it is wrong for not finding it beautiful. I don't think she's wrong. I think that it is a subjective thing based on some objective standards, but it still will come down to your own subjective measure.
Okay, on that specific point, like let's just see if that case happens and then the woman is passing by and then she does not um yeah, so does not actually see that place is it was before. But if in that situation, so is actually the beauty of the place going to be decreased after that? It is not. I think the way she sees it, I mean, because like she has some memories with it, so you'd not necessarily want to maybe like just say go and enjoy out or hang out in that place. But that does not mean that the beauty of the place in itself is actually going to be decreased. So so that's kind of the point of view I have in this topic because and not necessarily so she is not actually relating to beauty of that place in that sense, but she has some memories so that are actually bothering her, not actually the beauty, or let's just say it's not the hatred for the place, but um it's the memories that she gets reminded of from that place, but it does not necessarily mean that the place is not beautiful anymore, you know so yeah, it just like the emotions, or it just like the way it changed, but it does not mean that the beauty of the place is actually no more, or maybe the place is less beautiful now because of what happened to her. So yeah.
Well, that assumes that there was this objective beauty to the place in the first place. But where would that come from? This is the question I was asking you. That um, you're assuming that there
Hmm.
is this automatic something is or is not beautiful,
Hmm. Hmm.
and yet I don't think that there is an explicit yes or no to that we humans can know. At least to the human mind, we measure
Hmm.
this subjectively with I find this beautiful. Well, I find this beautiful. I find mountains beautiful. Yeah, well, I personally like deserts. I don't think the person who says I personally like deserts is wrong. Again, you're saying that there are objective things that we can measure, and I would agree that there is some level of objectivity in that we can say the vast majority of people think that think that movies with good scripts are better movies. But there are some people who intentionally like movies that have different types of scripts. So how do we even measure what a good script is. And we can point to specific things like, oh, a good script is a movie that doesn't have exposition in it. A good script is a movie that is a comedy. And somebody else goes, yeah, but what about dramas? Aren't dramas good movies? And so we say yes, but somebody else says no. And it ultimately does become entirely. So there needs to be some, because if this was a philosophical point, what you're arguing is deontology, which is the idea that there is an objective lawgiver, that there's a specific like written like law. So in your case, what you would be saying is there is an objective, everything is or is not beautiful. But in order for that to be the case, you would need to show what is making everything beautiful or not beautiful. And how we come to that objective knowledge. So in your case, where would it come from? Where is this thing saying, here is the book of knowledge of all that is good and all that is bad in terms of beauty?
I think on this case, the biggest measure to see it would be how we actually have the most beautiful places in the world. You know, if in case you actually, I mean, so many like big magazines and everything, they actually post, they have like news and everything, like, you know, showing the most beautiful places of the world. I think why that exists is because there is a set mentality that everyone is going to find that thing beautiful. So let's just see if in case you type in the most beautiful movies of all time, maybe you'd get The Notebook, or maybe you'd get this Shawshank Redemption. So like, you know, it's something, no matter you like it or not, it is already listed as the most beautiful movie, or like, you know, the Forrest Gump or anything. So I think I'd not say, I don't know, like how do we actually get into that universal standard, but there are definitely things that are set out there like is beautiful. And I think, you know, so it's even giving a personal example. So if, I mean, we don't tend to be, me and my sister, like, we don't really, I mean, like being judgmental, but sometimes, like, you know, when we like see, let's just say some shows or something, so there are people like, or even with my friends as well, there are people like who see likes and I don't like that and that, even in terms of the physical appearance. But sometimes like we come to a point where most of us, like, let's just say all of us, like, you know, like someone the way they physically appear. So I think it's because they're beautiful, like they are objectively beautiful. So in that case, because I think that actually works out. So in that case, it's not in the eyes of beholder, but that girl or that boy is actually beautiful in itself. So it's not possible to say that, hey, like, he's not beautiful, because he is. It's objectively objectively, I don't know, set out there. Yeah, I think it happens actually sometimes. Yeah.
So I went and I looked up the most beautiful movies of all time. And I also looked up the most beautiful places in the world. And I quickly skimmed through a couple lists.
Okay.
And they're all different. Each list is different. So the point is, it's a very subjective thing. And yes, I would agree with you that there are certain things that we humans can say, most humans appreciate this. And then based on that, most humans appreciate this, we can make certain standards. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily correct. It just means most humans like it. But that's not that's not complete objectivity. Like, I can say, and I'll come back to films again, because I do know a lot about films and everything. I can say, objectively, most movies are much better when they follow the 3-act structure. But my brother loves movies that don't. My brother is one of the most knowledgeable people about movies out there. Is he necessarily wrong because he has a different preference? I don't think he is. I think he just has a different preference, and that he sees beauty in a different way. That's why when I look at those film lists, they all have good objective reasons for why they value their movies the way they do. And they say, look, these are the 50 movies that are the most beautiful. And then somebody else says, actually, no, here are the 50 most beautiful movies, and they'll have a little bit of overlap, like 25 of them might match. But they disagree on 25 of the movies. So I don't think either of them are wrong because it is their subjective visualization. So here's what it comes down to. If you can show that there is a specific 100% objective measure of beauty, then I think you would be right that beauty comes from that. And that anyone who disagrees with that objective measure would be incorrect, right? Mm-hmm. But if there isn't this set law anywhere, then it's just us humans creating our own systems of supposed objectivity, right? Mm-hmm. That, hey, look at this. Most people think this is the case. But most people could be wrong. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that says that's necessarily accurate, which would mean then that it does come down to subjectivity, personal preference. And personal preference can be weighed through these supposedly objective means. Like my personal preference is for movies that critics tend to like. And critics tend to like them because they have good scripts, they have good cinematography, they're unique and they're well made. So those are objective measures, but I don't think that my opinion is necessarily 100% correct because somebody else can disagree with me for good reasons and they can be equally correct. I don't think there is a one size fits all on beauty, if that makes sense.
Okay. In that case, I would say, I would say like opinion is in the eye of beholder. But again, like beauty for me wouldn't be in the eye of beholder because as I said, opinion would come from different kind of like thinking and thought processing. But beauty again would be something that's beautiful in itself. And as you say, like, I don't really have a measure to actually say that, but it's something people would, I think, find beautiful regardless of anything. So let's just say you and me liking her would be our opinions, like, matching to what the movie says, and that's why we like it. But wait,
what would you say is objectively 100% beautiful? Anyone who disagrees is wrong.
In that case, like, don't you think everyone finds like everyone finds like a river or let's just say mountains, or I don't know, I feel like these are kind of like there are certain kind of things that some people are going to like no matter what, and it is not going to depend on them whether or not the beauty is going to be increased or decreased. So it's something that is going to be existing like is beautiful no matter what a person has, no matter the opinion a person has on it. So that's when I see it as something that it is not in the eye of beholder. I think those are the instances when we can actually say that it's not in the eye of beholder.
Well, I don't think that 100% of people do think that rivers are beautiful. I don't think 100% of people do think that deserts are beautiful or mountains are beautiful, right? I don't think they do. That maybe a lot of people think these things are beautiful, but not everyone. And even if they did, even if every single person in the world thought it was beautiful, that doesn't mean it is beautiful. That just means they personally found it beautiful. Let me go back to women here, okay? Today, the ideal woman is skinny and yet has curves. However, that's supposed to work. That's kind of impossible, but that's she's tallish and usually models or something like that. I don't know, whatever it is. And yet, we think that this is the objective measure of beauty. But during the Revolutionary War and during previous centuries, a woman was thought beautiful if she was bigger because it meant the family had food. And so she was well endowed because they had enough food. And so this cultural standard of beauty was based on the time that if you they thought that the richer women were the most beautiful women because they were fatter, which
Mhm.
today all of society thinks that's different. All of
Okay.
society back then or all of
Mhm.
society now
Mhm.
is wrong? I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's just a subjective measure where we were basing it off of our culture, and so we came to certain things that were objective, but not 100% objective. They were just objective for the time, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I think yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So even in the case when you said like there was a time when people like thought fatter women were actually the ideal ones. So even in that case, so do you mean that all the beholders were same, or all the beholders had the same viewpoint? So because if in case we are seeing that fatter women actually were considered the ideal ones, that means everyone considered that, right? Because
Well, does that mean that fatter women were beautiful back then and are not beautiful today?
no, but
Just because culture sees them?
no, it just look in that certain time, it was implied that fatter women were beautiful. So as you said, like it was beholder didn't exist anywhere because in that time, fatter women were beautiful because that was objectively implied. So
Well,
that's uh-huh.
sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say the beholder was the men, the men who were looking at
So
them.
every beholder, do you mean like every beholder had the same viewpoint then?
Well, I mean that was what culture felt at the time. Just like culture today, not everyone in culture today believes that skinny women are the most attractive, but that's what culture seems to be saying. But just because culture says that doesn't mean it's accurate. It just means that's what certain individuals prefer, which is why its beauty is coming from the subjective opinions of those people. And they
Mhm.
might have objective. I don't know why your objective reason for it would be, except a lot of people find this attractive. But that's not objective. That's just lots of people like this. That's very different than saying this is. I don't
Mhm.
see anything that humans can point to. I will say this. You could point to the idea of God. That if
Mhm.
there is an objective moral lawgiver, there might also that God might also know, okay, this is what beauty actually is. But
Mhm.
we finite beings will never know that. We can never be infinite, so we can never know what an infinite being would know. So we're just creating our own systems of this is what most people think is beautiful. This is what I think is beautiful. This is what logically makes sense is beautiful. But whatever we create won't be necessarily correct. It will
Mhm.
just be our subjective creation, which is why, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is this is my personal opinion of what beauty is. And I can base this off of some objective standards, but it's not going to be 100% objective.
Okay, I think it's easier in terms of getting into like finding something beautiful, but let's just see the other side. Let's just see who would find a boy beautiful if in case let's just say a boy is very dirty. He has not taken like let's just say shower since like 7 or 8 days, and he has like bad clothes on his body, like let's just say dirty ones, and you know he looks dirty at all. So in that case, do you think is anyone going to find him beautiful? If
I'll
in
refer
case,
you back to your example at the very beginning.
okay.
His mom. His mom will subjectively put more of a
Mhm.
semblance of beauty
Okay.
towards him, and that doesn't necessarily mean that she's objectively right or that the rest of the people who see him are objectively wrong. Just means a lot
Mhm.
of people have an opinion, but that doesn't make them right or wrong. It just means they see it in a certain way.
Okay. As I said before too, even the mother is not actually going to find that child or that boy aesthetically pleasing, but she's going to imply because that's her child, you know. So I think yeah, the child is not still going to be aesthetically pleasing. It's just because she will definitely try to imply it because that's her child, and even she knows deep down that the child is not actually beautiful, but that's how like relations work. I mean, my mom maybe would always tell me I think this is something we talked about before in our last debate too,
Hmm.
that I'm the best child in the world or something, because you, yeah. So that's how it works. But I think on that case, no one would find that boy beautiful, because it's not in the eye of beholder, because like he does not actually meet the standards, or let's just say the objective standard we have for beauty, and then it's something that has to be pleasing, and the boy is not pleasing, so it's not eye of beholder. He's not beautiful.
Well, there's two things I would say that quickly. One of them would be right now, if we saw someone who hadn't showered for 5 days, we'd be like, "Whoa, why would you do that? That's horrible," right? But in the old times, when they would only have a bath once a year or not at all, that child would be incredible, right? It's our subjective measurement of that child, because we compare that child to all the other children who we currently see, and we go, "Wow, compared to all of them, you stink." But back then, they'd be like, "Oh, wow, compared to all the other children, you smell amazing," right? Subjective thing, which is based on what we are surrounded by, and that changes. Like the woman who might have had her husband murdered at Sea Ranch, that changes how she views the world and how she views the things around it. The other thing that I was going to say about this is this still isn't objective. Like, there are certain things that we can say objectively, like we prefer it. We have sensual preferences toward people who don't stink. We can say that. But that doesn't mean that there is this one size fits all standard for beauty. It just means there are certain aspects of it that we can say that with objectivity appeal to us more. And yet, there's still, when we get down to all of it, like the fullness of beauty, we can point to some things, but we can't point to the entireness of beauty. Why it ultimately is going to come down to subjective preference.
Okay. All right, so I think we just have like two minutes left for this, but I mean, in terms of like my own perspective, I'm definitely on the pro side of it, because like I
Oh.
personally believe, but I wanted to sound as if like I am on this side, so that's why I was like, that's my opinion or something. But yeah, I do believe that beauty is actually in the eye of beholder, because yeah, I mean it is, because I find things beautiful which my friends do not like, or even my parents, or like my own sister, my twin sister, who actually is supposed to like everything I do. So yeah, I think it is definitely in the eye of beholder, and I disqualify, or like regret the objective standards we actually have for beauty, and I think that's all unimportant, and yeah, everything. But yeah, I just wanted to have a debate with you, and I think I love having debates on this kind of topics with you. I don't really want to get so much technical with you. I love topics like which have a lot of thinking, and this kind of topics. I think we have always had debates on this kind of topics. So I had fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I did not realize that you didn't believe that, because you specifically said you wanted the con. I didn't know. I would have taken either side too. I didn't actually know which side I was on until now. But but
I
yeah,
think, yeah, it's because like I think the con is more challenging, because yeah, I think it's more challenging if you see, especially in today's world, because everyone has like their certain perspective, opinion. I think the con has more challenging side. So yeah, I was just trying to push myself to see like what could be done from this side, and yeah, that's why.
sometime in the next couple of weeks, we should do this again and switch sides. I just want to see what would happen. But yeah, awesome. It's good to see you. I will look forward to, not now because I have to go see Star Wars, but I will look forward to watching your debates with Chandler and Liam and seeing what happens there.
Yeah, and we should actually try a kind of like a straight debate sometimes. Like I want to do that too. Like
Oh
something
yeah,
that.
yeah, Iron Man and like switching sides immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm so glad you had time, and then I took out time for
Yeah,
my
sorry for
dinner.
dragging you out. I was just like, I needed to
Yeah.
pick someone who's going to smile at me.
And yes, you are beautiful, and that's me, the beholder.
There we go. That works.
But yeah, have fun and have a good night. Thank you so much.
That's